Good morning, Angela Irvine. Thank you so much for joining me today. Really appreciate your time. Now, Angela, you've been a breeder and a cat judge for a very, very long time. Tell us a little bit about your background in the world of cats.
I started breeding ragdolls some 34 years ago. They were a passion of mine. I imported my first ragdolls from England, and went on and showed a lot, did all the normal things. My biggest highlight in my ragdoll breeding was selling a kitten, to Brunei.
Oh, cool.
Which went to the palace up there.
Lovely, yeah.
So, and they actually sent down a plane to pick the kitten up. So that was very interesting. In 1996, I went to America. In 1995, I went to America to pick up 2 ragdolls. And whilst I was there, I was introduced to the Sphinx.
Yeah.
And I just loved them. So when I got home, I decided I wanted to buy one as a pet.
Yes. When
I found out the price, I decided that it was rather expensive. So maybe if I bought 2 and had a litter, they would pay for themselves.
Yeah.
And of course, 2, it didn't stop at 2.
Yes, so I've got to say, I know a lot of ragdoll breeders and owners, and it varies. It's a bit like you collect one, you've got to have, one of each colour, and they're a beautiful breed.
Yeah, but with the Sphinx, my breeding pair were the first in Australia.
Oh, cool.
So we had to go through the channels of having them accepted for registration and showing, which we did in 1997.
Yep.
And in 1998, we had our first litter.
Cool.
And since then, I've imported Sphinx from America and Sweden.
Lovely. Excellent.
I decided after that I would look at doing my judges course.
Yep.
Because I was always at the shows and I was fascinated by judging.
Yep.
So I then took 5 years to do my judging course, which sounds a long time, but actually it's something that you really have to put your time into and learn your standards to do it properly.
It's actually quite a lot of work a lot of people I don't think realise.
Yes, a lot of work,
Yeah, especially to be an all breeds
judge. You don't realise how many breeds there are.
Yeah, that's it. And because you're an all breeds judge, aren't you?
Start off. Yes, that's right. So I judge everything that is presented at a show.
Yeah.
So that's when. So now I'm an all breeds judge. I'm registered with ANCATS, which is Australian National Cats.
Yep.
I'm one of their all breeds judges, and because of my love for Sphinx and the fact that no one knew much about them, I decided to write a book, which I did, and I had that published.
Lovely.
And a copy of that book went home with all my pet owners. It is only a coffee table type book which they can refer to if they have an issue or a problem. And a copy was I was asked to send a copy to Canberra to the National Library to go into their archives.
Oh, good. Lovely. Very nice. Now,
so what I'm doing now,
what
I'm doing now is I'm actually updating that.
Yeah.
And I'm now decided to write one for breeders because I think it's important that we include a lot more info, especially for new breeders of Sphinx.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense because they're a beautiful breed, but they certainly can be complicated.
Very complicated. Yes.
So today what we're actually talking about, though, is the work that you've been doing with FIP in cats. Now, I suppose the first thing we need to know is what exactly is FIP?
FIP are the 3 letters making a word that is the dreaded fear of every breeder in the world. FIP stands for Feline Infectious Peritonitis. You cannot catch FIP. You can relate it a little bit to, I suppose, cancer, where you can't catch cancer. You can't catch FIP. The reason for that is FIP is a mutation.
Right.
And it's a mutation of the coronavirus.
Right.
And every cat has coronavirus, because a lot of coronavirus is very good. So it is just a mutation of a benign form of coronavirus.
Right.
And as you know now, another form of coronavirus is COVID-19.
Yes.
So there are many forms of coronavirus.
And there was actually quite a lot of discussion when coronavirus broke about the fact that cats had coronavirus, and there was a lot of scaremongering.
Yes,
going
a lot
on
of people thought that the cat's coronavirus and the human coronavirus could be caught from each other.
Yep.
And of course, that's not the case.
Yep.
Because coronavirus is a virus that lives within everyone.
Yeah.
Even we have coronavirus.
Yeah.
But it's a case of whether or not we catch the virus that actually forms COVID-19.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
So
what are the symptoms?
So you can't catch it.
What are the actual symptoms when a cat gets it?
Coronavirus. Okay, so FIP is the mutation of the benign coronavirus.
Yep.
It typically strikes kittens and young cats under 2 years of age, or older cats whose immune systems have been stressed or otherwise compromised.
Right.
In saying that, we still do see coronavirus mutating into FIP in other ages of cats.
Yeah.
But that bracket of cat is the most likely bracket that you'll see FIP.
Yep. So it's basically more like the vulnerable side of things. Would that be right? The more vulnerable.
Yeah. So basically, cats that coronavirus mutates into FIP.
Yeah.
It's normally only 5 to 10%, and they either have a genetic predisposition or a weakened immune system that allows the virus to mutate into the virulent form of FIP.
And what actually happens to the cats? How do you know that they've got it? Like, is it a diarrhea, gastro type thing? Okay. Is it a flu? What's the symptoms for it?
Well, first of all, let's talk about the types of FIP.
Okay.
There are 4 sorts of FIP. The most common one is known as the effusive or wet FIP. This type of FIP is characterized by the buildup of fluid in the cat's abdomen.
Right.
It can also happen in their lungs or even around their hearts, which is called the pericardial effusion.
Yep.
So they get fluid around those areas.
Yeah.
They often look like they're pot-bellied.
Yep.
And their bellies feel like a water balloon.
Right.
A lot of people, especially people not in the cat world, think that their cats are just grossly overweight.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it will be wet FIP.
Right.
So dry FIP, which is non-effusive, is very difficult to diagnose, because they don't have any specific actual symptom. They normally are lethargic, they don't have an appetite, they can have a fever, they might be anemic, and there could be diarrhea.
Right.
So those type of things normally show that it's what we call dry FIP.
Yeah.
And you really need a good vet to be able to pick that up.
So there's no test or anything that you can run to check to see whether they do have FIP?
There are tests, yes. If it's wet FIP, the vet will normally draw a little bit of fluid from the belly.
Right.
The fluid is a yellowish straw colour.
Yep.
And that is caused by the proteins in the fluid. And that's a very, very good indication that it's FIP.
Yep.
They can, or they should run bloods. And in the blood panel, you will normally see that they may be anemic and their protein levels may be very high,
Right.
which gives a good indication that it's FIP.
Right.
Unfortunately, you do get the odd cat that doesn't show any of those symptoms, and yet they still have FIP.
Okay.
So it can be very difficult to diagnose.
Yep.
Ultrasounding the belly or the chest area can show fluid.
Yep.
Which again is a good indication that it's wet FIP.
Yep.
Often with dry FIP, they will get enlarged lymph nodes.
Right. Yep.
And especially enlarged kidneys. And that again can be shown by an ultrasound.
Right.
So that again can be a sign that it is FIP.
Yep. Yep.
Also, we have ocular FIP.
Yep.
Ocular FIP is not as common, and it's when the FIP actually affects the eyes.
Okay.
Fairly easy to predict because the eyes get cloudy.
Right.
And often they start to bulge.
Yep.
And in very serious cases, the eye, in fact, may or may not have to be removed.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Ocular FIP often is associated with dry FIP.
Right. Okay.
You don't always get both, but you don't normally get FIP on its own.
Right, that makes sense.
You don't, so yeah, you get FIP on its own, so you don't normally get ocular FIP on its own.
Yeah.
Then we have neuro FIP.
Okay.
Neuro FIP is when the breakdown of the cells happens in the brain.
Right.
And what happens there is the cat gets wobbly, it can't stand up properly, and it falls over, all those type of things. And again, neuro FIP normally is associated with dry FIP.
Right, okay.
You don't normally get neuro on its own.
Right. No, that makes sense. So it's kind of like it's an add-on to the dry one.
Yes, it's more of an add-on to the dry one than it is the wet one.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So you've been involved in a lot of, or doing some research into what can be done to support cats that actually have FIP, because you actually had a cat with FIP, is that right?
Correct, yes.
So you've
Boda is now, my cat now is classified as cured.
Yeah.
If treating for FIP, I have to say, is not for everyone.
Yeah.
It's something that the person who owns the cat has to look at the whole scenario. What we do is, and a lot of vets are doing this as well, they're referring people with a diagnosis to go to the FIP Warriors site.
Yeah.
And at the top of that site is a section called files, and anyone can go into those files and read up on everything they need to know about the diagnosis of FIP, what it is, what treatments are available, what to expect, how to treat your cat, what testings are required during treatment. So the person should be able to have a very, very good understanding of treatment before they start.
Yeah.
But I do have to emphasize, treating is not for everyone.
So
some people find...
Yeah, go on.
Some people find treating financially out of reach. That is why we run a fund to help.
Yep.
They also find that they can't bring it within themselves to treat.
Mm-hmm.
They just can't do it.
Yep.
So in that situation, euthanasia is their only option, as there is no other cure.
Yep. Yep. No, that makes complete sense. So there's been, because I know you've been following the work of an American
Yes, so
doctor, is that
Dr.
right?
Niles Pedersen.
Yeah.
Dr. Niles Pedersen, he was the first vet to actually run trials using this drug, which we refer to as GS.
Yep.
And it's an antiviral drug.
Yep.
And he actually called for 30 cats who had been diagnosed with FIP to go to his university in America, the Davis University, and he ran trials on these cats, and he kept very, very accurate records. Now, initially, like all trials, it worked for some and not for others.
Yeah.
But his work is still continuing today, and anyone that has FIP has that ability to email Dr. Pedersen if they have an issue or a problem, or if they have something that they want to check with him, and he will answer. He has actually dedicated the rest of his life to FIP and, you know, the curing of cats that have this terrible disease.
Yeah. So there's case studies then of the work that he's done and how it's all been done and all that sort of thing, I'm assuming.
And those case studies are all online for people to read.
Excellent. So
people can make a full, and you know, they can actually read the case studies and have all the information they require before they actually consider whether treating is for them.
Yeah. So I know that you said before that the cats can't pass it to each other. How exactly do they get it, like with transmission? Is there a transmission, or is it just, how does it develop?
Okay, so Dr. Pedersen does believe that there could be some genetic component to this. There is actually at this early stage no proof, because he only ran his trials at late 2018, early 2019. So it's very new. Right. So he believes that there could be some genetic predisposition to this. So as a breeder, if you breed a kitten with FIP, it is really important that you discuss with your vet, if your vet is willing to discuss, or discuss with one of our FIP people or Dr. Pedersen himself, whether or not you should continue to breed with the mother or whether you choose not to. In my situation, my vet is of the belief that an FIP case can happen to anyone. So he believes that you need more than one case from the same mother to actually start looking at whether or not it is a genetic predisposition. So you might have a mother who has given you an FIP kitten and she's never given you another one. Because there are so many other reasons why a kitten can mutate into FIP. And a lot of that is stress.
Right.
And I can't emphasize enough the importance of the role stress plays in FIP.
And is it more prevalent in some breeds than others? Because I have heard that dogs, for instance, can be quite vulnerable to it.
Absolutely. And we don't know why. We still haven't had the trials done to understand why some breeds are more prevalent. We know by the number of cats that come down with FIP that Burmans and Ragdolls are very prone. The numbers are very high within those breeds. We also know that British, which is a beautiful, thick, chunky, healthy cat, their numbers are very high, as are Maine Coons. And in fact, in Australia, Maine Coons are probably the highest. We have more cases of FIP in Maine Coons than any other breed. Sphinx also have very high numbers. And as a Sphinx breeder, I can understand why. Because Sphinx are hairless on the outside, which means they're hairless on the inside, which means when they're born, they have little or no cilia on their cells.
Right.
And cilia builds an immune system. So if that immune system isn't developed correctly by the breeder, it always makes them vulnerable to any mutation that they may in fact have within their body.
Right.
Rescue cats, again, are very prone, mainly because so many of them have a poor start.
Yes. That would make
so a lot of
sense.
people that have the so-called moggy will find that they have cases of FIP. And it is actually a fallacy when people say, oh, moggies are so healthy, because actually they're not.
I would suggest to you, particularly those ones that have come from a very difficult start, rather than the ones that have, you know, perhaps had a reasonably good start to life. But yeah, I can see how that could easily happen. So
yeah, well, a lot of them are born in alleyways.
Yeah.
Or they're born in factory bins, things like that.
Yeah.
And they have a very difficult start to life.
Yeah. So what can people do in particular from the kitten perspective to ensure that they're not going to awaken the FIP within?
Well, there's no guarantee that you can ever say my kitten will never have FIP. But there are certain things as a breeder you can do to help build a very strong immune system in your kitten.
Yeah.
And that starts by, first of all, mating a mother that is in tip-top condition.
Yeah.
So it starts right at the beginning. So don't overbreed your queens. Make sure when you do mate them, they are in tip-top condition.
Yeah.
Make sure that they have had their vaccination prior to mating.
Yeah.
And during the development of the kitten, the 63 days, do not worm them or give them a flea treatment.
Yeah.
Because that in turn can affect the fetus.
Yeah.
So once the babies are born, it is very important to make sure mum and babies have a very stress-free environment to grow up.
Yeah.
Mums need to be able to feed their babies. They don't need to worry about the family dog. They don't need to worry about the toddler coming in. They need a stress-free environment. Yeah. You, the breeder, can help by making sure that mum has an exceptionally good diet.
Yep.
I have always found putting the mum on a kitten diet works very well. And a couple of little tips that I have found personally is the use of probiotics to the mother.
Yeah.
Really helps the mother build a strong immune system. And in fact, I start the newborns on probiotics 48 hours after birth.
Okay,
just
cool.
by syringing a little bit of probiotics into their mouth.
Yep.
It's also a good idea to give the babies a vitamin supplement like Nutrigel, which again just helps them build that really strong immune system.
Yeah.
And then weaning is important, making sure that when you wean them onto a good food, and making sure that all of the babies eat. You know, it is time consuming as a breeder, but you can't just put a plate of food down, walk away and assume that they're all going to eat. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that they all eat.
Yeah.
And keep an eye on their weights to make sure you don't have a straggler, one that's struggling.
Yeah.
It may be necessary to supplement feed, you know, a smaller baby.
Yeah.
Weigh them every day to make sure that they are gaining weight. And the next hurdle, of course, is worming. So we don't recommend you start worming until around 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then, of course, vaccination. And we're very, very concerned about some vets, what they choose to vaccinate the kittens with. You do have to discuss this with your vet.
Yeah.
It's not something that we can tell you what to do.
Yeah.
But our choice of vaccination is an F3 inactive vaccine. which is the less stress version that a body can take.
Right.
So a little kitten's body will not be as stressed taking an F3 inactive rather than an F4 or an F5.
Got it.
So 8 to 10 weeks is the perfect age to introduce that first vaccine, because most kittens will have immunity from their mother up until that period of time. If you vaccinate at 6 weeks, it's a waste of time. The mother's immunity will just kill the vaccine off.
Yeah.
And then the second vaccination, probably 12 to 14 weeks is the perfect time.
Yep.
And of course, many states now do insist on early desexing.
Yep.
It's something that the breeder has to really talk to their vet about, especially if you breed a kitten or a breed that is more vulnerable to FIP.
Yes. Yep.
You may want to consider, is that the best thing for your kitten? Personally, I desex at 14 weeks, but if I have a kitten that I call a poor doer, I will not desex that kitten until around 20 weeks.
Right.
Which often means the kitten will go to a home locally, and I will explain to the new owner why the kitten isn't desexed, and I will make sure that I contact the new owner, pick the kitten up at 20 weeks and have it desexed.
So I suppose that would be particularly with your kittens that are a little bit more smaller, or one of the ones that have struggled a little bit from the beginning, just giving them that bit of extra time to mature. Is that the plan there?
Absolutely. And giving them extra time to put on the weight, and an extra time for their immune system to kick in and really for them to be very healthy. Unfortunately, and I question a breeder that doesn't agree with me, all breeders from time to time will come across a kitten that might have a bout of diarrhea through starting solids, just like babies do. And they may also have a kitten that will succumb to a runny nose, which may be bacterial or viral, in which case they have to have veterinary care for that. And any kittens that have had that, it's always a good idea to talk to your vet about whether or not vaccination or desexing should be delayed a little bit to allow that kitten not only to recover, but to help its immune system build up again.
And I suppose too, things like if you've got a kitten in that sort of zone, that it's probably best to find a local home rather than fly them across the country. That type
Absolutely. Unfortunately, and it's only through lack of knowledge, a lot of newer breeders will breed a litter of kittens. They'll get them vaccinated at 6 weeks, at 10 weeks, have them desexed at 10 weeks. And 48 hours after desexing, they're put on a plane to fly over east or from east to west. And then when the kittens arrive, they're in poor condition because they're stressed. And then by the time the kitten's 5 months, we get the call to say the kitten's been diagnosed with FIP.
And it's quite
it's
surprising.
All about the stress.
It's quite surprising the difference between a 10-week-old kitten and a 12-week-old kitten. Like, we've got kittens here at the moment, and every single week they just change so much and mature so differently. I can definitely see, like, I know these particular kittens got just their vaccinations at 8 weeks, and we've had them for 10 days after they've been desexed. They're all females before they've started going off to their new homes. But you can really see the difference between a 10-week-old kitten and a 12 and a 14. Like, their development is very different in that amount of time. So I can see why it would make quite a difference.
Absolutely. And again, with the female kittens, it really is a good idea to keep them until the stitches have come out, and that you can see that they are fully recovered before they move to their new homes. Because so many of them get really stressed through desexing. Especially if the vet isn't used to desexing very young kittens.
Yeah.
The weight of a kitten plays an important part in desexing. For me personally, I don't desex a boy unless it's a kilo, and I won't desex a girl unless it's 1.2 kilos.
Yeah.
Because under that, I find the recovery takes a lot longer.
Yeah. Is that for both Sphinx and ragdolls?
Yeah, just generally, yes.
In general,
absolutely. Yeah. And people always want their kitten at 8 weeks or 10 weeks. And I just explain to them, I'm sorry, that's not, it's just not questionable, because I put a lot of work into raising the kittens, and I'm not prepared to see that just disappear because you can't wait an extra 2 weeks for your kitten. You will have it for life.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite surprising. I've had some discussions just recently with even some dog people that it's almost like a red flag if somebody says you can pick your animal up at 8 weeks and you can desex it yourself. Like, that's a huge, huge red flag to that person is not breeding for the right reasons, or doesn't understand the breeding process.
But the problem is, so many people believe that they should have their kittens at 8 to 10 weeks. And I think it's an education for them to understand that at 8 to 10 weeks, I know with my kittens, they're not always fully weaned at 10 weeks.
Exactly.
If they find mum, they go and run up and latch on.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So no, and I mean, for that extra week or two, that makes a huge difference to their health down the track. It's definitely worth the wait.
Oh, absolutely. It is worth the wait. And I explain to them that you're going to get a kitten that's going to walk into your home, feel at home, it's going to be happy, it's going to be playful, and it's going to be healthy. And at the end of the day, as a breeder, I still maintain health is my number one priority, even before type, colour, pattern. It's all about health.
Yeah, absolutely. Could not agree with you more.
If they don't want to have a cat that succumbs to FIP, health has to be the number one priority.
Absolutely.
And of course, this opens up a whole big bag of worms, because so many people say to me, well, is the breeder responsible for my kitten having FIP? Can I take the kitten back to the breeder, or will the breeder replace the kitten? And this is a very, very difficult scenario, but it's one that breeders nowadays, I think, have to have the conversation, and you have to make a decision so that, if you are ever in that unlikely position where you're going to get the phone call to say, Spotty has suddenly been diagnosed with FIP and he's only 5 months, you know what you're going to say and how you're going to deal with it.
Yeah, and I suppose too, if like you said earlier, if it's a one-off where one kitten out of, say, 15 or 20 has the problem, compared to 5 or 6 out of 15 or 20, whether it's actually a genetic issue or whether it's it's just a bad luck issue.
That's right. And sadly, a lot of breeders immediately say to the new pet owner, well, what have you done to cause it?
Right.
And, you have to look at the whole position. If you can honestly say to yourself, my kitten has had the best start to life, I have raised it in a stress-free environment, it's had the best of food, it's been wormed, desexed, vaccinated at the correct times, and it's left here healthy, then you have to sort of wonder, why suddenly has this kitten developed FIP? And this goes back to you right at the start, saying to the person that wants your kitten, what is your situation? Do you have young children? Do you have other animals in the house? Because as a breeder, it's like your own children. You get to
Yes.
know your kittens very well. And you may have a kitten that you know would be far better placed with a married couple, or, you know, two people that work from home, or maybe they don't have children, they have no plans to have children, or an older person who that kitten will bond with very, very easily.
Yeah.
To place a kitten in a family situation where 3 or 4 children, dog, maybe another cat, you've got to have what I refer to as the bomb-proof kitten for that.
Yeah.
The kitten that really has bounced from the day it was born.
Yes.
Never had an issue.
Yeah.
Has gone along well, is open, is friendly, is outgoing.
Yeah.
That's the type of kitten you place. So I always say to people when they say, oh, I'd like a blue point ragdoll, I say, forget the colour. It's about the kitten. It's about the how the kitten is, how healthy it is, whether it's a big kitten or a small kitten, whether it's outgoing, the personality. Those things are far more important than the clothes that it wears, which is its coat colour. That's not important.
One of the things that I often talk about, because there is a big discussion out there of breeders versus rescues and all that sort of thing, and I'm a big advocate that the best thing about breeds is that they've got traits. And if you're an active family, then getting an active cat and looking at the different breeds that it would suit your home environment is incredibly important to make sure you get the right fit, not necessarily, like you said, not what the clothes is that they wear, but whether the traits of that particular breed are going to fit your circumstances more than anything else. So it's
exactly.
So there's some cats or some breeds that are much more outgoing than others, and there's some breeds that are much more timid than others. So
I agree, and all that plays a part in the decision of what breed you're going to get. And it also, as a breeder, as I said before, having that conversation and knowing how you're going to deal with it is very important.
Yes.
For me personally, I've been very fortunate and haven't had that many cases of FIP. Before the treatment came in, if the cat was under 18 months of age, I used to replace it, no questions asked. Over 18 months, I used to strike a deal like you can have the cat for the vet costs or something like that. I'd work it out with the people, and that way you build your own reputation. Now that the treatment is available, I have only had one case, and their boy was, he's a Sphinx. Their boy was 7 months. So I said to them, look, I will help you. They chose to treat. So I said, right, I will help you. So I have helped them a little bit financially. I haven't paid for the treatment, but I have supported them with the treatment. And they are over the moon to think that they have a breeder that is supporting them. We have had cases where the breeders have just turned their back and walked away and said, not my problem.
And I think that's a really important thing for the breeding community, is that if breeders are going to get a good reputation amongst the general public, we have to be responsible to look after those cats that are bred under our prefix. So making sure that you're looking after those people that have come to you is really, really important. There's a number of people that have been burnt by bad breeders, and just the other day I did a video about the scams that are now out there. And unfortunately, Maine Coons and Ragdoll seems to be the two breeds that people are trying to sell online, and you send your PayPal deposit in and all of a sudden they disappear. And so there's all sorts of things that you've got to consider when looking for a really reputable, good breeder. And I think it falls back on the breeding community in a way to actually make sure that we're doing the right thing, not just for our breed, but for breeders in general.
I agree. I've actually taken it to the next level. I actually have a condition of sale agreement.
Yeah.
So it's not a contract. That's different. This
Yep.
is just a condition of sale agreement and receipt. So the cat sale is receipted on this agreement.
Yeah.
But then I also have a paragraph headed FIP.
Yeah.
And in that paragraph, I state that if your cat, unfortunately, is diagnosed with FIP under 18 months of age, I would like you to contact me and I will work with you for the best outcome for your cat.
Yeah.
So that way, people have the security of knowing that they feel comfortable to make that phone call back to me to say, you know, I have. I mean, when this guy in Queensland rang me to say his cat had been diagnosed, he said to me he's actually going to be euthanized the next day.
Oh.
And I said to him, do you know that there's a treatment? And he said, no, my vet hasn't mentioned anything about a treatment.
Yeah.
So I gave him the rough outline of the treatment.
Mm-hmm.
I explained to him that it's not necessarily for him, but I would like him to ring our admin and have a chat to her and make the decision and then to contact me again.
Yeah.
This was on a Saturday morning. He rang her immediately after he got off the phone, and by Saturday night, that cat had its first treatment.
Wow. With the treatment itself.
That cat now is on about day 47.
Yeah.
And he's just doing brilliantly.
How long does the treatment normally take?
Well, I'll talk about treatment in a minute.
Yeah,
so
sure.
This cat is on day 47.
Yeah.
And he said to me, you'd never think he was sick. He said, I cannot believe the turnaround. And he said, in fact, my vet looks at him and says, no, it's not the same cat.
Yeah.
He just can't believe it. So basically, when a cat is diagnosed with FIP, what we ask the owners to do is get the vet to run a set of bloods so that we have an indication as to what the cat's blood levels are. Because in some cases, cats will become anemic.
Yeah.
So once we know what the blood situation or what the blood levels and tests are showing us, we can work out with the owner whether they want to treat or not. And if they do, to discuss it with their vet. It's very important that their vet knows. Whilst vets can have no involvement in the treatment at this point of time, a lot of them still like to be involved. And it's really good because you need your vet to help. For instance, if your cat is anemic, it may need a blood transfusion. Yeah. If your cat is not eating, it may need a vitamin B shot. And those are things that only a veterinarian can do. So it's important to do that. Then we put you in contact with our admin. There are two types of treatment. Both treatments under Dr. Pedersen have to be given for 84 days. So it's a commitment you have to make for 84 days. Yeah. So the treatment can be given either by injection, and of course, because there's no vet involvement, this has to be done by the owner. Yeah. Occasionally we get an owner that says, I can't do it. Yeah. So in that case, they can decide to treat with capsules, with tablets. Dr. Pedersen has found out through his trials that cats that are treated with injections, at least for the first 14 days, get a better result. Yeah. So if we do have someone that says, I can't do this, normally we find a breeder or a vet nurse out of ours that will show them how to do the injections. Yeah. Or it might be another pet owner that's had a cat with FIP and is
Yep.
currently injecting. So, and there will be hit and miss times. It's just normal.
Yep.
So we normally are able to set them up with some moral support and also some physical support to get them going.
Yep.
So the treatment is, as I said, injections or tablets. And normally, if the person is really dead against injections, we say, do it for 14 days, then switch.
Yeah.
So, so that's the treatment, and it's for 84 days. Halfway around day 42, we ask that they get the bloods done again.
Yep.
And normally you can see quite a difference in the bloods.
Right.
From the first blood test.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, my cat's well, I don't need to do it anymore. And we say, yes, you do.
It's a bit like when you take
it's a bit like antibiotics.
Yep.
Yes. Take them for 3 days. I'm fine now.
Feel better.
No,
Yep.
you take the course.
Yeah.
So 84 days. Once the end of 84 days comes, we ask the bloods be done again. Then they go on what we call 84 days of observation.
Yep.
So the next 84 days, we just ask them to treat the cat perfectly normally, but just keep an eye on them.
Yeah.
In very, very rare situations, a cat will relapse.
Right.
During that observation period. It doesn't happen very often, but occasionally it does. And normally they relapse for a reason. For instance, the pet owner may decide to have the cat desexed.
Right.
While they're treating.
Right.
And if they do that, they're putting the cat under so much stress.
Under more stress, yeah.
That the cat will relapse.
Yes.
Or they might decide to worm the cat or give it a flea treatment, which we advise no, none of that to be done. Nothing to be done that can put the cat or the kitten under more stress.
Yeah. So as stress-free as possible for that 84 days afterwards. And then what happens at the end of that 84 days?
The cat is officially cured and it's finished.
Wow, that's amazing.
So after the 84 days of observation, you now are classified as having a cat that is cured of FIP.
Wow. That's fantastic. That's so, really, really amazing.
You are looking at about 6 months.
Yeah.
But you just have to weigh up what you want to do.
And I mean,
my boy finishes his observation today.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's fabulous. That's wonderful news.
Yeah, today is day 84 and he's now finished. So he's classified now as being officially cured.
That's wonderful. Congratulations. That's really, really good news. Yeah. And I suppose, I mean, cats have all sorts of different issues. I know a few people that have got diabetic cats that have to have injections twice a day. And they have to do that for the rest of their life. So a 6-month commitment to overcome something like FIP is actually really only a little blip in their entire lifespan, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's like we do the injections at the same time every day. So you pick a time that suits you.
Yep.
I always did mine first thing in the morning.
Yep.
And then you forget about it for the rest of the day. Yep. You don't have to worry.
Yeah. And is it really important during that time to make sure that the cats are kept stress-free while they're on the injections as well as in the observation period?
If possible, yes. Yep. Treat them as normal as possible. But again, just make sure they have a good diet. We recommend that you give them the probiotics the whole time you're treating them.
Yeah.
You can just mix it in their food and just make sure that they don't have, any unnecessary stress.
Yeah.
If they do fall sick for other reasons, like maybe they might suddenly get an abscess because they've got a bad tooth, or they might get a cold, and you go to the vet, make sure you explain to the vet that the cat is on treatment, so that any treatment that the vet gives is as stress-free as possible. Yep. A cat can quite easily tolerate antibiotics whilst it's on treatment.
Right.
That's
Well,
not a
that's
problem.
amazing. That's a really, like, it's quite surprising because I have heard of a number of people, you know, that have been devastated because their cats have FIP. So the fact that there's actually not just a treatment,
Yes.
but also a support group and a Facebook group that you can go and get information on and all that sort of thing is just wonderful.
And this is what is so important. It's the network that, you know, people, whether they're pet owners or breeders, form through having a cat with FIP. So we always say to someone, you're not alone. I know with my guy in Queensland, him and his partner felt very alone. So we told him to join the groups, to send regular photos in, let everyone know how their cat's going. And more importantly, if finances becomes a problem, don't be frightened to ask for help. Set up a GoFundMe page. Just ask people on the group, can anyone help me financially? Put up your PayPal details, because you will find people that have treated a cat and have a cat that is cured are so eternally grateful that they will happily donate $20-$30 to someone else that's just starting out.
And you know, I find that cat people are probably the most generous people that there are. Like, people that love their cats, they're just a different type of person. They're very empathetic to other people. Quite often they're a little bit more introverted. They're not necessarily extroverts. But they really are the caring kind of people, because let's face it, if you've got cats...
And often you find, Melissa, they're the people that can least afford it.
Well, that's very true.
Find a way.
That's right, exactly.
And this is why we set up an FIP fundraising group. Unfortunately, because of the way tax goes and the fact that we're dealing with a drug that is not tried and tested in Australia yet, we can't actually fundraise outside our own group. So you are hitting the same people or asking the same people. But people are very generous. It's amazing. Since I've had the group, I've helped about 14 people.
That's fantastic.
By buying, what we normally do is we will buy their first couple of vials for them. And then that sets them on their way. And then that gives them time to think about how they're going to do the fundraising, how they're going to financially afford it. And we say to them, you know, if you don't buy your coffee every day, you will be able to fundraise your, you know, your cat's FIP treatment. It might mean just giving up a couple of little things. We had a lady who actually sold a few things that she had around the house that she didn't want.
There's always a way. If you want to find it, there's always a way. If people want to donate to your cause, where do they actually need to go?
Well, at the moment, I'm actually going to put a link up onto the FIP Warriors Australia and New Zealand page, because at this time we try and keep the help within our own people, because we just don't have enough funds to help everyone worldwide.
That makes sense.
So we actually are keeping it just within Australia and New Zealand. We have taken New Zealand on board, and the admins in Australia look after the people in New Zealand.
So if somebody wanted to help, they just need to find the FIP Warriors Facebook page and join that?
Yes. So basically, if someone is interested in learning more about FIP, just Google FIP Warriors, and that page has so much information on it. You can go to the files section and you can read everything there that you need to know and understand about this disease.
Excellent.
If you are unfortunate enough to have a case diagnosed, we then recommend that you join FIP Warriors Australia and New Zealand.
Right.
It's a smaller group because we only cater for people in Australia and New Zealand.
Cool.
And you will get all the help that you need, and you will get it very quickly because, as you said before about people that own cats, if someone suddenly has a diagnosis like my owner did in Queensland, he drove an hour to another lady's house who was treating, and she was able to give him a vial that she had.
Great.
So that he could start treating straight away. And then when his vials arrived, he replaced her vial that he'd borrowed.
Excellent.
So everyone helps everyone.
Sounds like a fantastic community.
And that way, every cat hopefully, if people do choose to treat, everyone can start treatment as soon as possible, because we have found the earlier the treatment is started, the better result you will get.
Yeah. Angela,
that's
is there anything
so important?
Is there anything that you feel that we haven't covered about FIP today so far to finish up on?
I think the hardest thing about FIP is realizing that you're not on your own. Also, there's no blame in FIP.
Yeah.
A breeder can't blame, maybe they've bought a queen from someone else. They can't blame that breeder because the girl has given them FIP kitten.
Yeah.
The owner of a kitten can't go back and blame the breeder.
Yeah.
There is no blame. Just like you can't blame your neighbour if you have cancer.
Yeah.
You know, there's no blame to this.
Yeah.
It is a mutation. And unfortunately, we don't know why these cats mutate.
Yeah.
Dr. Pedersen doesn't know why. There's going to be many, many more years of understanding why this happens. So all we can do at this point in time is support and help each other if we find we have a cat that does mutate, or a kitten, into FIP. That is so important. The help is available.
Yeah. So no blame, no shame. Let's support and get the animals over it. Yeah.
And unfortunately, there still are breeders out there who will gossip. Oh, do you know so-and-so? She's got a cat with FIP.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
That has to be wiped out of the cat fancy. There is no shame in having a diagnosis of FIP. It is no different to having a diagnosis of diarrhea or calicivirus.
Yeah.
It's just another disease that the cat fancy has to look and take on board head on and deal with.
Yeah. No,
and the help is there.
Yeah.
The support is there. Unfortunately, it is a little, financially it can be out of the range of some people.
Yeah.
But again, we say to people, don't worry at the beginning about the finances at the end.
Yeah.
Take it day by day.
Yeah. Because
you will be amazed at the number of people that will come on board, and $20 here, $10 there will soon add up to $120, and you've got another week's or 2 weeks supply.
Yeah.
We can't ever say to someone, the course of treatment is going to cost you X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
Because there's so many factors. The weight plays a big part because the kitten is treated on weight.
Yeah.
So like if you're treating, we've got a lady here in Perth treating a rescue kitten of 3 months, and her weight was only 600 grams.
That's a little baby.
We had someone treating a Maine Coon of 6 months, and he's 5 kilos.
Yeah.
So the weight of the animal plays a huge part in the cost factor.
Yeah.
Also the type of FIP. If you've only got wet and you've only got dry, the dose is less than if you've got dry with ocular or dry with neuro.
Right.
The dose for that has to be more.
Yeah.
So you can't put a price on how much it's going to cost.
Yeah. Yeah.
My advice, and this is what I've been telling breeders, now we know there is a cure for FIP, why don't you set up a money box, a tin, something, even a separate bank account, and every time you sell a kitten, pop a few dollars in there.
Yep.
And leave it, and don't worry about it. And then if ever you are faced with this, you've at least got some backup that you can start treatment with.
Yep.
Or maybe you'd like to support your pet owner and say, look, you know, I can't pay for, you know, we should never expect a breeder to pay for the treatment, but a contribution is probably a really nice thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So
and at the very least, supporting your pet owner through that sort of thing is crucial, I think.
Well, most cases of FIP will happen in the first 18 months.
Yeah.
Or they will happen in their senior years.
Yeah.
No breeder can be responsible for senior years.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you get a case in between, it's normally something has happened in their life that has suddenly made this virus mutate.
Yeah.
It might be they've been hit by a car and they've had to go through a huge recovery process. They might have broken a limb and had to go through a recovery process. They might have gone into rescue and they've been rehomed. Normally, you can trace it back to an incident that's happened that has suddenly caused them to mutate into FIP.
Right.
But in the first 18 months, my own opinion is I would like to think that I could support my pet owner.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, well, I think
it gives us a good name.
Yes, well, it does, doesn't it? And I think that's a really good spot to finish up with, is that I think we really do need to make sure that as breeders we do support the people that buy our cats, and we do support each other. And I love one of my sayings with cats is there's no blame, no shame, just solutions. And this is a perfect example where that's what we need to look at. So, yeah. So, Angela, thank you so much for joining me today.
That's okay. And, you know, just on a last note, if anyone is ever faced with FIP, just as heartbreaking as it is, try and be very positive and just seek help. The help is there for you, and no one is going to name and shame you.
Excellent.
We're all there for each other.
That's a perfect way to end it off. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you, Melissa. It's been my pleasure.